When people talk about the most important updates in Geometry Dash, they usually mention 1.9, 2.0, 2.2, or even the original 1.0. But what if I told you that none of those are the most important update in the game's history? Instead, it's an update that on the surface doesn't seem very impressive. It added just one new color channel, expanded the color system, and introduced the earliest forms of effect-based decoration. Yet without this update, Geometry Dash would have never become the game it is today. It marked the beginning of the modern era of level creation. Creators suddenly had far more freedom, level quality began improving at a rapid pace, and the community entered a period of explosive growth that eventually gave us many of the game's most legendary levels. So what was this game-changing update? Update 1.7 was released on May 21st, 2014. It introduced a new official level, Electrodynamics, along with one of the game's most recognizable mechanics, speed changes. But those weren't the most important additions. The real game changer was the introduction of a customizable color channel and color changing blocks. More importantly, these blocks included a small feature called blending. At first glance, blending didn't seem like much, but when enabled and paired with a fully black color channel, the color changing blocks would become completely invisible. In other words, creators had access to something remarkably similar to the alpha trigger nearly 2 years before it was officially introduced. Blending also allowed objects to visually merge together, opening the door to effects that had never been possible before. By carefully arranging these invisible color triggers, creators would even build convincing equalizer-style animations using just a single color channel. These techniques weren't immediately understood by the community, but everything changed when one level showcased what was possible. And that level was FunnyGame Holiday by FunnyGame. On June 22nd, 2014, FunnyGame released what would become one of the most influential levels in Geometry Dash history, FunnyGame Holiday. The level immediately grabs your attention with bright, flashing neon colors that fade smoothly into black using the newly discovered blending effect. It was unlike anything most players had seen before, but the ship section is where the level truly begins to shine. Blocks appear to become invisible, custom backgrounds create depth, subtle 3D shadows give the level a polish that was almost unheard of at the time. While some creators had experimented with similar ideas before, none have executed them with this level of quality. This is followed by one of the most iconic effects of the 1.7 era, the equalizer. Using nothing more than a single color channel, FunnyGame managed to create an incredibly smooth and convincing animation. Looking back, it's amazing that an effect like the advance was so possible early in the game's history. Next section pushes things even further with a full block equalizer effect alongside one of the earliest custom ground designs ever seen in a rated level. After that comes a fairly standard mini-ball section, but it ends by revealing a colorful Space Invader style pixel art, making it one of the earliest examples of colored artwork in Geometry Dash. This level closes with one final blue equalizer sequence, ending on the same impressive visual style that defined the rest of the level. Altogether, FunnyGame Holiday was an immediate success, eventually reaching more than 5.1 million downloads and over 342,000 likes. But this wasn't the only level that made 1.7 so revolutionary. It was simply the beginning, and it would take one more level for update 1.7 to truly showcase its potential. Checkmate by FunnyGame at first glance looks like a simple red chess theme level, but one effect in particular changed everything. At 45%, the illusion of 3D is created almost entirely with spikes, giving the environment a sense of depth that was rarely seen at the time. This technique quickly spread through the community with countless creators recreating and expanding upon it in their own 1.7 levels. It's possible that effects like these helped inspire RobTop to introduce the official 3D objects that arrived in update 1.9. While there's no confirmation that this was the case, the similarities are hard to ignore. With FunnyGame Holiday demonstrating what blending could do and Checkmate popularizing convincing 3D effects, Update 1.7 became the foundation for the visual creativity that would define modern Geometry Dash. A great update isn't defined only by the levels it introduces, it's also defined by how it changes the community. During Update 1.6, 426 levels were rated, and Update 1.7 that number increased to 661. At first glance, that might not seem like a huge jump. On average, the number of levels being rated each day increased from about 7 in 1.6 to 9 in 1.7. While those numbers may sound small, they reflect a gradual shift in the community. More players were beginning to invest serious time into learning the editor and pushing its limits. Instead of relying on simple default block spam, creators started experimenting with original mechanics, visual effects, and more ambitious designs. As a result, overall standard for rated levels began to rise. It was no longer enough for a level to be simply playable and not look terrible. Creativity, originality, and innovation were becoming increasingly important, standards that in many ways still define Geometry Dash level creation today. Difficulty during this time was also beginning to increase significantly. One of the earliest examples of this was Primary Maze by Centuple, the first extra-long demon level created in Update 1.7. It also became one of the earliest insane demon level challenges of the era, setting a new standard for difficulty at the time. Other notable demon levels from this period include Silent Club Step and Prohibited Prison, one of the first levels to introduce a clear narrative design element. Around the same time, The Nightmare also received its 1.7 update, shaping the level into the version players recognize today. Another major milestone was the achievement of the 1 millionth level ID, signaling just how rapidly the game's player base was expanding. Together, these moments show how Update 1.7 wasn't just about visuals, it was also a turning point for difficulty, ambition, and community growth. So overall, Update 1.7 has more than enough reasons to be considered one of the most important updates in Geometry Dash. 1.7 was the update that introduced new colors and blending effects, unlocked early forms of visual tricks like invisibility and equalizer animations, and sparked a major shift in how creators approach level design. It also marked the rise of more ambitious, experimental, and difficult levels, while the community itself began growing faster than ever before. At first glance, it may seem insignificant compared to later updates like 1.9 or 2.2. However, without 1.7, those updates likely wouldn't have been as nearly as colorful, creative, or influential as they are today. In many ways, Update 1.7 wasn't just another step forward, it was a foundation everything else was built on.